My name is Elena Morales, and I am 62 years old. I sit alone in my small living room, listening to the slow tick of the wall clock above the bookshelf. The sound fills the quiet space like a heartbeat. Outside the window, morning light touches the curtains, soft and pale. I hold a warm cup of tea, but my hands still feel cold. These hands have worked for decades, stitched dreams together, and carried more weight than they ever should have. I am not rich, I never was, but I am a mother, and that has always been my greatest title. When people see me, they see a calm, older woman with tired eyes. What they cannot see are the memories stored inside my chest. Some are warm and gentle, others still hurt when I breathe too deeply. I decided to tell my story today because silence can be heavy. I carried this story quietly for many years, afraid of judgment, afraid of pain. But time changes fear. Now I believe stories like mine need to be heard, not because they are special, but because they are real. I grew up believing that love meant sacrifice. My own mother taught me that lesson with her tired smile and rough hands. She never complained. She never rested. I followed her example without question. I thought that giving everything was the same as doing the right thing. As I look around this room, I see my life in small details. The sofa where I waited for phone calls that never came. The lamp I left on late at night, hoping someone would walk through the door. The framed photo of my son on the shelf, smiling, confident, young. This is not a story about perfection. It is a story about mistakes, hope, and painful lessons learned slowly. It is about love that was tested, trust that was broken, and strength that surprised me when I thought I had none left. If you are listening to me now, I ask you to stay. Walk with me through these memories. Perhaps you will recognize something familiar. Perhaps you will feel less alone. This is the story of the mother who gave everything. Before everything changed, my life was simple and predictable. I lived in a modest apartment near the old Market Street. Every morning, I woke up at 5:30 when the city was still quiet. I made coffee that smelled strong and bitter, then prepared breakfast for my son, Daniel. He liked toast with butter and a little sugar, just like he did when he was a child. I worked as a seamstress in a small tailoring shop downtown. The room was always warm, filled with the sound of sewing machines and soft conversations. My fingers moved quickly, almost without thought. Sewing was not a dream job, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it allowed me to provide for Daniel. His father left us when Daniel was 3 years old. I still remember Daniel crying at the window, asking when his father would come back. I had no answers. From that day on, I promised myself that my son would never feel abandoned again. Daniel grew into a quiet, intelligent boy. He loved reading and fixing broken things. At night, after long work days, I sat beside him while he studied. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but I stayed awake. I wanted him to feel supported. I wanted him to feel safe. Money was always tight. I counted every coin and planned every expense carefully. I never bought new clothes for myself unless it was necessary. When Daniel needed books or school supplies, I found a way. I told myself it was temporary. I believed the future would be kinder. On weekends, we shared small moments of happiness. We cooked together, watched old movies, and laughed at silly jokes. Those moments felt like enough. I thought love could protect us from everything. I did not realize that love, when given without limits, can slowly disappear into expectation. At that time, I only saw my purpose clearly. I was a mother. My life revolved around my son, and I never questioned that choice. Looking back now, I see warning signs I ignored. But at that moment, my heart was full. My hopes were strong, and my faith in sacrifice was unshaken. Everything began to change the day the letter arrived. It was a bright afternoon, and sunlight filled the apartment. Daniel came home holding an envelope with trembling hands. His eyes were wide, his breath uneven. I knew something important was inside before he spoke. "Mom," he said softly, "I got accepted. The university was in the city, one of the best schools in the region." My heart jumped with pride and fear at the same time. I hugged him tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of his jacket. I wanted to celebrate, but reality followed quickly. The tuition cost was more than I earned in a year. That night I lay awake listening to the sounds of the street below. Cars passed, a dog barked. My thoughts refused to slow down. I wondered how much a dream should cost and who should pay for it. I whispered to myself, I will find a way. The next weeks were filled with difficult decisions. I visited the bank with nervous steps and signed papers I barely understood. I sold my wedding ring, the last piece of my past marriage. It felt strange letting it go, but I told myself it was just metal. Daniel's future mattered more. When I told him everything was arranged, his face lit up. He thanked me, his voice full of excitement. I smiled, hiding my fear. Inside, my stomach tightened. I was standing on the edge of something unknown. The day he left for university, I stood at the bus station, holding his suitcase. My chest felt heavy, but my smile stayed strong. "Make me proud," I said. As the bus disappeared, silence surrounded me. I felt proud, scared, and strangely empty. I told myself this pain was temporary. I believed sacrifice always led to success. I did not know that this decision would test not only my strength, but my understanding of love itself. At first, Daniel called often. He told me about his classes, new friends, and city life. I listened carefully, imagining the places he described. His voice sounded confident, stronger than before. I felt relieved. My sacrifice seemed worth it. Slowly, the calls became shorter. Then they became rare. When I called him, he sounded distracted. Music played in the background. He spoke quickly, as if in a hurry to end the conversation. I told myself not to worry. Young people change. I wanted to trust him. The first warning came with a phone call from the bank. The woman on the line spoke politely, but her words made my hand shake. A payment was missing. I checked my calendar again and again, hoping it was a mistake. When I asked Daniel, he sighed loudly. "I forgot," he said. "I'll fix it later." Later never felt close. Months passed and the pressure grew heavier. I worked extra hours. My back ached. My eyes burned. At night I lay awake counting numbers instead of sheep. Anxiety settled deep in my chest. When Daniel came home for holidays, he seemed different. His clothes were expensive. His phone was always in his hand. When I asked about school, his answers were vague. I felt a quiet fear growing inside me. One evening, I asked him directly if everything was okay. He avoided my eyes. "Mom, you worry too much," he said. Those words hurt more than anger would have. I felt invisible, like my sacrifices had become expected, not appreciated. My heart raced, but I stayed silent. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I realized something was slipping away from me. Trust, connection, control. Still, I did not stop supporting him. I told myself this was what love required. I did not yet understand that love without boundaries can slowly turn into quiet pain. The truth reached me on an ordinary afternoon, which somehow made it worse. I was folding laundry when the phone rang. My hands were tired, my mind elsewhere. I almost ignored the call, but something told me not to. The voice on the line belonged to a woman from the bank again, but this time her tone was firm. She explained numbers, missed payments, and consequences. My chest tightened. I sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table to stay steady. After the call ended, the apartment felt smaller. The air felt heavy. I stared at the wall for a long time, unable to move. Then I did something I had never done before. I checked Daniel's public social media pages. What I saw made my hand shake. Photos of expensive dinners, weekend trips, parties with people I did not recognize. Smiling faces, bright lights, careless joy. This was not the life of a struggling student. This was not the future I had sacrificed for. That night when Daniel returned home, I confronted him. My voice was calm, but my heart raced. I showed him the screen. I asked him to explain. He looked away. Silence filled the room. It was louder than any argument. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and defensive. He admitted he had used part of the money for opportunities. He said it was temporary. He said success required risks. Something inside me broke. I felt cold from my fingertips to my spine. Tears filled my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I whispered, "I trusted you." He had no answer. That night I did not sleep. I lay in bed listening to my own breathing, uneven and shallow. I wondered where I had gone wrong. I questioned every decision, every sacrifice. For the first time, I felt completely alone. Not poor, not tired, alone. I realized I had given everything without asking for honesty in return. The pain was deep, sharp, and unfamiliar. This was my darkest hour, and I did not know how to stand up again. Change did not come suddenly. It arrived quietly, carried by exhaustion and truth. Months passed without improvement. Daniel stopped answering my calls. The bank pressure increased. My body felt weaker, but my mind slowly became clearer. One rainy evening, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there soaked and trembling. His confident posture was gone. His eyes looked tired, older somehow. "I lost everything," he said. I stepped aside and let him in. I did not hug him. I did not shout. I simply listened. He told me about failed plans, broken friendships, and debts. His voice cracked. For the first time, he sounded like my son again. I made tea and placed the cup in front of him. The familiar smell filled the room. It grounded me. I took a deep breath and spoke carefully. "I love you," I said, "but love does not mean saving you from every consequence." He looked up surprised. I told him I would no longer cover his debts. I told him he needed to work, repay what he could, and rebuild honestly. My hand shook, but my voice stayed firm. That moment changed everything. Daniel found a small job. He moved into a shared apartment. It was not easy. He struggled, failed, and learned slowly. He began to take responsibility. He called more often. He listened. I also changed. I set boundaries. I said no. I focused on my health and peace. It was difficult but necessary. Forgiveness did not erase the pain, but it allowed growth. I learned that standing up for myself did not mean abandoning my child. It meant teaching him how to stand on his own. This was not a perfect ending, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Relief. 5 years have passed since that rainy evening. I am older now, slower in my movements, but lighter in my heart. Time did not erase the past, but it softened its sharpest edges. Daniel runs a small repair business today. It is not famous. It is not rich, but it is honest. He wakes up early, works with his hands, and earns what he has. When he visits me on Sundays, he brings bread and fresh fruit. Small gestures mean everything now. Our conversations are different. He asks about my health. He listens when I speak. Sometimes we sit quietly drinking tea, sharing the same silence that once hurt us. Now it feels peaceful. I also changed my relationship with myself. I stopped measuring my worth by how much I give. I learned to rest without guilt. I learned to say I matter too. Looking back, I see how easily love can become sacrifice without balance. I see how fear of losing someone can make us lose ourselves. These lessons were painful, but they were necessary. I do not regret loving my son. I regret not protecting myself sooner. Still, regret does not control me anymore. Understanding does. Sometimes I touch the space on my finger where my wedding ring once rested. I no longer feel loss. I feel acceptance. Life takes many forms. Strength often arrives late, but it arrives. If you are listening to this and feeling tired, unseen, or used, know this. It is never too late to change how you are treated. Love grows stronger when it includes respect. My story did not end in wealth or applause. It ended in honesty, healing, and quiet mornings filled with light. And that is enough. Stories like mine happen everywhere in every culture, every family. Parents work endlessly. Children grow quickly. Somewhere along the way, love becomes expected instead of appreciated. If there is one truth I learned, it is this: giving should never mean disappearing. In modern life, many people feel pressure to sacrifice everything for success. We believe love must hurt to be real, but pain is not proof of devotion. Balance is. Here are 3 lessons I want to share with you. First, love needs boundaries. Saying no does not mean you care less. It means you respect yourself enough to stay whole. Boundaries protect relationships, not destroy them. Second, responsibility builds character. Support is powerful, but only when it encourages growth. When we remove all consequences, we also remove learning. Third, forgiveness works best with change. Words alone cannot heal broken trust. Actions, time, and honesty are what truly repair relationships. These lessons apply to parents and children, partners and friends, teachers and students. Anywhere love exists, balance is needed. You do not need to give everything to prove your worth. You are valuable simply because you exist. When you remember that, your relationships become healthier and your heart becomes lighter. My journey taught me that strength is quiet. It looks like calm decisions, steady voices, and choosing yourself without guilt. It is not selfish. It is necessary if you are facing a difficult relationship today. Pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself if love feels safe and fair. If not, something needs to change. You deserve respect. You deserve peace. You deserve love that does not require your disappearance. That is the true lesson behind my story. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Sharing these memories was not easy, but stories connect us in ways silence never can. If my words reached you, then this story has already done its job. This is Learn English by Stories, a place where language learning meets real emotion. Here we believe that English is easier to learn when it carries meaning, feeling, and truth. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever sacrificed something important for someone you loved? Did it bring you closer, or did it create distance? Comment yes if this story touched your heart. Share your experience below. Your story may help someone else feel less alone. If you are learning English, listening to stories like this helps your mind and heart grow together. Pay attention to the words, the emotions, and the rhythm of real language. Learning does not have to feel cold or difficult. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Learn English by Stories. New emotional English stories are shared every week. created especially for learners around the world. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Whether you are watching from Asia, Europe, Africa, or the Americas, you are welcome here. Language connects us. Stories remind us we are human. Thank you for being part of this moment. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Until the next story, take care of yourself. You matter more than you think.